Hallelujah, hallelujah. Blessed be the Most High King, Yehudah. Thank you, the Most High God, for another day. Early Shabbat Shalom to everyone. Giving glory to the Most High King, Yahuwah. I'd like to wish everyone an early Shabbat Shalom, and also like to say a Happy New Year to everyone out in our community. Giving glory to the Most High God as we approach this time of liberation for the nation of Yisrael, even as we're approaching our exodus or the remembrance of our exodus from the land of Egypt. We give glory to the Most High God and thank the Most High God for where we are today, and also praying for our future in the land which he promised our fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Giving glory always to him and to him alone, because he is to be magnified and glorified at all times. My name is Zurishaddai. I'm one of the teachers of Congregation Bay D.C.B, BINAH, CHOKMAH, located at 382 Hamilton Avenue, Brooklyn, New York. Zip code is 11231. We're located in the Red Hook section of Brooklyn, New York. Giving due respect to the spiritual leader of our congregation, even not Chief Prince Yeriel Ben Yissaskar, giving the Most High God, thanking the Most High God for his life, praying that the Creator be with him and his family, his household, and bless them. Also, thanking the Most High God for all of your lives, and I pray that the Creator be with all of you in all of your endeavors. As we move on, today we're going to be going through the Haftarah for portion Tazria, and the one who will be teaching that lesson will be none other than one of my teachers and one of my mentors, even Nasik, Zurishaddai ben Yehudah. How are you, Nasik?
Good, Baruch Hashem. First of all, I'd like to give praise to the Supreme Eternal Universe, God of my forefathers, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob, and due respect to the platform on D.C.B channel platform, spiritual leader, Chief Prince Yeriel Ben Yissaskar, to those Chief Uzziel Ben Lewi, and to the Princes, Chief, Kohanim, the Rebbeim, Marine, brothers and sisters, visitors, I greet you all in the time of my forefathers. Shalom Aleichem and early Shabbat Shalom. Also, as Chief Uzziel said, that we are already into the beginning of months for us, and beginning of us ecclesiastical year, which is in the month of Aviv. And one of the things I'd like to go back over before I focus on that, and the Haftarah we'll be doing this, it's actually this Shabbat that just passed was actually Shabbat Kodesh, which was the new moon, a new month. And the first Shabbat of the month of Aviv is called Shabbat, Kodesh, the Shabbat, the Shabbat of the month. And since it's Shabbat HaKodesh, it's supposed to be an exciting thing. A lot of things supposed to happen for us, especially in the month of Aviv. The other term that you use for the month of Aviv is Nisan, which from the root word means a nes, which is miracle. So it's a month of a lot of miracles. Before I go further, it's usually a different Haftarah read, which deals with the third Beit HaMikdash, the third temple, which come out in the book of Ezekiel, the 40 some. Let me make sure you the right information. And usually come out of Ezekiel for the Ashkenazi, 45th chapter, 16th verse, going to the 46th chapter, the 18th verse. The Sephardims usually do pretty much a similar, but they go from 45:18 to 46:15. So they tend to do a little less on than Ashkenazi. But I'm not going to be going through that particular Haftarah, which is a rare Haftarah that comes up on the Shabbat with the Sidra Tazria. Tazria is actually Tazria. Excuse me, Tazria. Tazria is actually an actual when a woman gets seed. but it also means to plant, from the word to be in plant or sow. So it's an idiom for sowing as well. But I like to go back just a little bit in the Sidra Shimini. Last week I did a different Haftarah because it was Shabbat Parah. This particular Shabbat here that we just passed, which was Shabbat HaKodesh, Shabbat Kodesh rather, Shabbat Kodesh. That Shabbat, which means, you know, the Shabbat of the new month or the new moon. That particular Shabbat, we have a different Haftarah, and that's the last of a series of 4 Haftarah special Shabbats that the Maftir reads a different section, and it has a unique Haftarah for those particular days. But so last time I didn't go into the normal Haftarah for Shimini, which become out the book of Samuel, the 2nd chapter of the book of Samuel, 6th chapter, first verse, to the 7th chapter, 17th verse. But for the Sephardic, it was just the 6th chapter only. But I'm just going to highlight, just give an overview in reference to that. We was talking about the death of Aaron's sons last portion, and that was with Nadab and Abihu. And the 2 sons died offering a strange fire. Yet they was trying to worship the supreme intelligent universe, and he slayed them on the spot. And their father was forbidden to mourn, not only the father, but their brethren. Their siblings, such as Eleazar and Ithamar, was forbidden to mourn on such an occasion as that. And they said the people come on. So one of the things like that were parallel to that, because rarely some Haftarahs has similar things related to the Sidra. But this time we're talking about the Ark and about another tragedy when we deal with the normal Sidra for Shimini. And when we deal with the normal Sidra, we're dealing coming out of the book of Samuel. For those that might not look at it, I'm not going to turn to it. I'm just going to bring out some points within there. Is that, and like once again, for those that we might want to look at it later, let's go to Samuel, 2 Samuel 6 chapter, verse 1 to 7 and 17, which Ashkenazi. We'll give you a whole overall view of the story, a short one. Those that follow Sephardic, 6th chapter, 1 to 19, just a lot shorter. All right. One of the things is that David, we had the Ark taken from us one time in our history that we read about, and that's during the time before we had a king in Israel, during the time of one of the judges of Eli, who also happened to be a priest, and that his 2 sons brought the Ark when they were fighting the Philistines. And the Philistines in that battle had won and took the Ark. But then there's several cities, every city they bring it to, amongst the Philistines, they was getting all kind of plagues. Idols getting broken up and everything. So the Philistines wasn't going to ask Israel, why all this happening? Or how should we deal with the Ark? Because they thought of themselves as being superior to the people of Israel. So they wouldn't even ask how they dealt with the Ark at that time. So now they came up with the idea of putting the Ark on a cart with 2 milk cows. And we know the story, but the 2 milk cows, you know, they said, whichever way the Ark gonna go, that's where, you know, we're gonna let it go. Let's see if it's in anything supernatural behind it. That's what they're looking at. Something that deal with anything beyond their understanding. So they had emeralds and everything they had put inside the Ark. Mind you, they put emeralds and stuff like that, and part of their plagues within, you know, whatever happened on the boils and stuff in the Ark. And the milk cows, you know, would step, and you know, normally milk cows, when you hit a young, you know, going moo looking for milk, they will stop and feed their young, slow down and feed their young. But that's how the Philistines knew this was something supernatural, that those cows decide to go and walked towards Israel. And he wound up bringing the ark into a particular location, which was Uzzah and Uzzah's house, the one that got killed, and his family. So they had the ark for a while. David, when he ascended the throne, so that means it was there for a good little while. Saul was king for X amount of years. And then David, after he had got a little peace from all the wars, he wanted to get the ark up. So when he felt kind of victorious, he went to get the ark. And he had the music and the pump and everything like that. And he set the ark on a new cart and had oxen to drive it. And we know the story that that once the ark stumbled, that Uzzah, while they danced in the parade and enjoying themselves, they had a great oversight. The oversight was that the oxen stumbled. Uzzah went to save the ark from falling, and the Creator struck him down dead. David changed the name of the place from Nakor to another name, and he wound up being upset with the Creator, and left the ark and had the ark brought to another guy over at Edom's spot, the Gittite. So if something is dangerous, why would you send it to somebody that cause harm? If you didn't want it, and it's a holy artifact for us as Israelites, and you know the meaning behind it. So what we find later on is that we got questions that comes up. Why didn't David realize when he went to get the ark later on that it must be borne on the shoulders of the descendants of Kohath? Not by the priests, by the descendants of Kohath. Why is it that David put it on the cart in the first place? And some rationale would say, okay, some laws is only good for, the time they was in the wilderness for 40 years. The cloud get up, move, and they disassemble the tabernacle and they move it out and they carry it. But now, since they inherit the land, they're in the land, they're establishing the land, there's no cloud to say you move the tabernacle and the Mishkan from this spot to another spot. There's nothing to tell them and designate such a thing at that time. So you figure, maybe that only applied in the time that they was traveling in the wilderness. And we got, certain things like that. We know the manna stopped after a certain period of time. We know certain laws was only for a certain time period and it ended. So perhaps that could have been a problem. And it seemed puzzled about it because this is a man after God's own heart. And it took him a while to figure it out. And that was only after seeing the individual get blessed. That's when he got the proper people, the Levites, the descendants, come up to get the ark. And as soon as they walked 6 paces, he celebrated it. But it took a while after seeing that it was a benefit. So sometimes when you approach holiness, you got to do it as the Creator specified for you to do it. Some things are from certain times and some things for all times. But you have gotten it and put it on a cart with an ox, which is nowhere even prior, other than the Philistines, who's not subject to the law, that handled the ark themselves. Like I said, in one of my teachings is that once the cloud moved, and they had to cover up and the priest had to cover up the holy items inside the sanctuary, it was no longer as holy as it was then, until the cloud set and said, this way you put the Mishkan back up, and then the ark, and all the items come back in. And once it's set in its place, that's the holiness again starts. So that brings out another question. How did the sons of Phinehas, Pinchas, and Hophni, the sons of Eli, bring out the ark in the first place? And why to bring out to a battle? But those are other subject matters to consider. Now I'm going to go into why we deal with the Rosh Chodesh, the Shabbat just passed, the first Shabbat in the month of Aviv. And we have this controversy concerning years in our way of life, about do we start our year in the 7th month, which we refer to as Tishri or Ethanim, which is the original name, Ethanim, or we start the year in the month of Aviv, which we're in now. Now we know the Creator said this is when we start our year. And that's because our civil year, and it begins with freedoms. Now, we know, according to most tradition, and what we noticed that it never said that was never a beginning of the year, because most people in the East knew that was the beginning of the year, the 7th month, what we call the 7th month now. But it's beginning of what? Because we celebrate Yom Teruah in that 7th month. And it's supposed to be the memorial of the blowing of trumpets. So it's supposed to be more of dealing with nature, natural things, the natural formation of mankind, Adam, the natural things of produce growing and stuff like of that nature. Is the month where, we naturally celebrate Yom Kippur, where we say, okay, I naturally feel estranged. I got to try to get spiritually back to the Creator. It's a month also where we celebrate Sukkot in that particular 7th month, what they refer to as Tishri, and they say, okay, now it's within the natural order of things. But when we deal with the month of Aviv, and the Creator said this is going to be the beginning of the month for you in the beginning of your new year, this is a month embellished with miracles, very miracles. We had the miracle, first of all, to be able to leave Egypt. That was a miracle without fighting. That we had a Creator to fight for us, to be able to know that we had a God to redeem us as such, to be able to come to the Yam Suf, the sea of reeds, and Moses just stretched his hand out, and then the Creator had the water part, to have the pillar of clouds separate us, where it be light on one side and dark on the other between us and the Egyptians. Those we was with a lot of miracles. We come across on dry land. The waters close up and drown the Egyptians, and yet they all washed ashore where we could see them. So, and we had a lot of miracles coming out of that. And as the month had left, then we have another miracle, coming about, which is the miracle of manna. So we know automatically that it's a month of miracles for us. And that's what and that's what make this more unique in relation to us, because now we transcended the natural order of things, where in the 7th month, or the month of Tishri, or some people say Ethanim, which is the original name for it, Ethanim, which means strength and excessive rain. We pray for rain all the way to we get to basically Passover in the land. Rain is seems like a natural order, because now we have rain that comes up, from the waters, come clouds, condensation, come back down. So it's recycling, and the process go over again. So it's almost like a natural process. But when we get to Pesach, and within the month, which is in this particular month, we start to traditionally pray for dew. Now, you can have too much water, but there's never a such thing as too much dew. And dew is every single day. It never run out. Where water will run out, you can have dew even in the desert. So that's one of the miraculous things to show that it's more divinely given in that particular month. So the siddur for this particular week, which is Tazria. Now, Tazria is usually read after Pesach during the time of CHOKMAH. So, it's usually read there under normal years. And usually Tazria and Mizorah is read together in a normal year. But and a leap year is separate. And, and also it tends to come before the actual CHOKMAH. All right. So now I'm going to start up in the opening where it says in the 12th chapter, the first verse of Leviticus, and saying, the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, if a woman be delivered and bear a man child, all right, when in the Hebrews, a woman bears seed. So some books are going to say if a woman bears seed, all right, bear seed, then she shall be unclean 7 days. All right. So now, as in the days of impurity of her sickness, shall she be unclean, and in the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. Now, I like to just focus on that. All right. So, and first of all, when you talk about women, bearing seed, a lot of people make a conjecture, those that's in Christianity, and they go back to Genesis, they make the conjecture about the seed of the woman and the serpent, and then they say that supposed to been the guy that's born of a woman without no man involved. But here we see that a man is involved in here. So we see about a woman bearing seed here, it's would have a child. And they have this thing where that we have, what is important here is that not only the woman have, it said the woman that bears seed, in most books and some translations, but what is there is that what seed she has when she ovulate, her eggs, and the man, when he implant, what he have is seed, copulation, and it catches with the eggs and fertilize the eggs, then she will have, a child. Now they have this commentary reference to it, more like a rabbinic commentary. That they usually say, well, when a woman have seed first, she ovulate before the man actually seed, he actually put the seed connects with her eggs, that it mostly gonna be a male child. And if he, have a seed there first and waiting on the egg to be ovulated, it's mostly a female child. I don't know, I'm not into the medical field, but I'm just sharing some thoughts out there that's out there in reference to that. But what is interesting is that when it says here, we got this thing where he's circumcised on the 8th day. And you say, well, the 8th day. Now, why this seems to be out of place here? Why you bring about circumcision here in this particular chapter when it's talking about women bearing children, and then it talks about it goes into this particular sidra about leprosy. So it seems to be out of place. Seems like if we're going to talk about that, a woman bearing, seed and circumcision, then it seems like it should be along the time of Genesis when Abraham got all the information concerning circumcision of a male. And then another question, why is it that the man is only required to be circumcised and not the female? Some cultures, they do actually circumcise the female, but why is that there's just focus on the man? And does that make the man superior to the woman for his intellect or spiritual, simply because he's told to come into the covenant of Abraham, and the woman is not required to be told to come into the covenant of Abraham? So it's a lot of questions that could be thrown out there, which I won't address quite a bit in this particular short setting, but because my focus will be on the Haftarah today. But I just want to throw these questions out there for you to ponder. Now, one of the interesting things that I like to bring out and just focus on that, because it's a long topic, just even on the circumcision, is that in the Hebrew, the third verse, let me just get here right quick. It says, Ubay Yom Hashemi Yomo Basa Aralato. All right. all of Lato, all the toes, it's his circumcision. So it says, in the 8th day, he would be circumcised in his flesh. All right, be cut and circumcised in his flesh. Now, of his foreskin. All right, so now, what is unique? Those 5 words there, Ubayon, Hashemini, Imol, Basar, Al Lato. 5 words in Hebrew. And they and what's interesting here is that we have 5 words that's similar to something in the Genesis, which we go, if I go back to Genesis, the second chapter in Genesis, and the first verse, these 5 words here. Vayakol Elohim Bayom Hashibi Malakto. All right. So right here, when we did that, Vayakol, all right, which is 1, Elohim, 2, Bayom, in the day, that the Creator, finished his works. And it's in the English, it says, thus the heavens and the earth were finished. All right. So now, when it says thus the heavens and earth were finished, they got those 5 words there. What's interesting is that how would this correlate with those 5 words of circumcision? Being I said, the talking about the top of the circumcision should be done during Abraham's time. Well, Abraham's time, it just mentions about the child being circumcised. Anybody that's born, in the 17th chapter, that's 7 days old, be circumcised. All right. They don't say what time of the day. They say anybody that's, that's born of him or brought with money shall be circumcised, on the 8th day. Matter of fact, let me just read it exactly how it is so I don't mislead anybody in the 17th chapter of Genesis. Just to raise a point. Before I go to the talk, I find this a very important topic here. And in the 12th verse, in the 17th chapter, 12th verse, it says, and he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you, every male throughout your generations. All right, and then it goes on to say, he that's born in the house and strangers, stuff like that. All right, 8 days old. All right, so what we hear is a slightly different reading. And when we look at in Genesis, all you gotta do is be 8 days old. So, but it don't say on the 8th day. You must be 8 days old. But here in Vayikra, Leviticus, it says that on the 8th day, Bayom, on the 8th day. So what is the big difference in that? Is that, okay, it's a difference from 8 days old and 8th day. And one thing I'd like to bring out, and then you could discuss it with your teachers in various congregations, is that a person may be born, may be born on say for instance, we count days from sundown to sundown. All right. So we know since we count days from sundown to sundown, a person may be born on a Thursday afternoon, say like maybe 5 o'clock. We shoot the time 5 o'clock, Thursday afternoon. All right. One, this says it must be done in a day. We know Abraham got up in the day to to try to offer up Isaac early in the morning. We know that Moshe got up in the daytime to plead for us early in the day. We know that a day for us start at evening, in the morning, and then going down to the sun. So even in the evening, it's a complete day. So if our day start at evening and not at midnight, like some people do in this country here where we're around, then this brings out a particular problem, because in Abraham in Genesis, it says everybody that's 8 days old supposed to be circumcised. But here it is. Here, a guy must be circumcised on the 8th day. So now the person is born from, and the circumcision here specifies that it must be done in the day, not at night. And they say, what's strange about that? If a guy's born 5 o'clock on a Thursday in the afternoon, then you got Friday evening. Say the sun go down maybe 6:30. 5 o'clock he's born, he's born on Thursday afternoon in the daytime, and the sun going down at 6:30. Which brings in Friday. So when it brings in Friday, he's from Friday to Saturday, So you got Friday, you got Shabbat, you got Sunday, you got Monday, you got Tuesday, you got Wednesday. Now you're going into Thursday. All right. We know how we count the Shabbat, from Shabbat to Shabbat. This Shabbat that we just passed is 8 days past the other Shabbat, but we only count in 7 days, if you follow me. So this child, have not been alive no more than maybe 6.5 days to be circumcised, because he wasn't there that the eve of Thursday. When Thursday came in, he came in just about at the end of Thursday. So what makes this so marvel over here when it says on the day is that it's not based on how many days you've been alive, as long as you make it to the 8th day. Now we know that health reasons, stuff like that. They say, well, most children develop this K element in their bloodstream where the clotting be better. I learned that from different people that's in that field. But if a circumcision can be later, but it's not supposed to be earlier. And the early is not based on him being at least 7 days old. And then on the 8th day, he takes a circumcision. So that's what makes this law so unique, because now the individual is not even made a week of life yet. Basically 6.5 days. And he can circumcise and then say, well, you're gonna do it in the morning. Even if he did it in the afternoon, you know what I mean? It's still, he only been alive 7 days, you know what I mean? If he did it like that. If he did it at the evening. But the thing is that it's supposed to be done in the daytime. That's where they extract that. It must be done in the daytime. And that it supersedes that of Shabbat. But I don't want to be too long in that. I know I'm going to get a lot of questions, but normally circumcision would be done on Shabbat without a violation, because it talks about in reference to that day. So that means that if a person is going to be circumcised on Shabbat, just in short, and you can always write back and, we could discuss it further, but I'm just trying to be brief now, is that say your tools and whatever the stuff you had should be already prepared. And the only thing you're actually doing is circumcising the child. That means you ain't trying to prepare your tools, your knives, whatever the utensils you got in the area. All that's already done. So the only thing you actually do is just do the cutting, on the Shabbat. That's why a child could be circumcised on the Shabbat. Whereas a redemption of a child, at the end of 30 days, a male could be redeemed at the end of 30 days, so which means the 31st day. So that means right then and there, they wait to the end of 30 days that he must be redeemed. And then if Shabbat's there, perhaps, you could bring about. That's why usually it's done on the 31st day of life. But when it comes to circumcision, it's not a delay. Now, it's the thing about the Shabbat in relationship to circumcision, you know, and what is important and why is that. And also one of the things I like to bring out quick, and I know I'm going really fast because I want to get to the Haftarah, which is pretty long, is that men are usually represented by, you know, certain element of chesed, which women itself, which chesed is like, well, you know, kindness, acts of kindness, so to speak. Whereas women are more like the area of Gevurah. You know, Gevurah is actually feminine in terms as well, where chesed is more masculine in term. And Gevurah means a woman that's she's more disciplined, more staunch. Now, she may change her mind a lot. That's one thing. She might flip-flop over here and flip-flop there. That's a whole nother area. But they are more disciplined to receive stuff. So therefore, they don't need to go into that kind of area. If they're going to worship, they're going to worship strong, you know? So Gevurah, I mean, you know, discipline and strength. So they're going to be strong in that sense, to worship. I mean, most times when women worship in a place and they really like the worship service of a place, that place tend to be, you know, powerfully impacted. Men have to develop that. We're more easygoing, you know, but once we make our mind up, we are not subject to change. That's the difference. And once a man tend to make his mind up, he normally stick it out and run it through, ride through it. So hence the element says that the women is more disciplined. And so when they accept the creator, you know, they put more strength and, you know, I mean, in Kavana in it. And a man himself is a lot more, you know, I got to appeal to my reason in my mind. I got to see more in it. And then finally, I could jump into this wholeheartedly. So I just want to bring those little things out in reference to that. And as we go through the time, we're supposed to be working on these different aspects of seven, what they call seven sephiros, which characteristics of building our character as we approach the time of Shavuot. But I'm going to move straight ahead just a little bit and go to the actual Haftarah for the day. I mean, for that particular sidra. Now, like I said, normally they would do the book of Ezekiel, which is basically about talking about the third temple, and in reference to where they call him the prince, but like basically we would say a king, that where he gets and what he's not allowed to take, and how he deal with his inheritance, and he's not supposed to oppress anybody else with inheritance. So we get that as well in the book of Ezekiel for those that go over it. But I'm gonna focus today only on the book of 2 Kings, 4th chapter, 42nd verse. All right, so if we got it, we'll pick it up there if you dare, Chief. Well, I don't know if we got a communication there. Let me see. Just give me one moment just to find out what's going on that end. All right, well, let me see here. What's going on that end? But anyway, I'll start off, and we'll be in 2 Kings, the 4th chapter. I mean, 2 Kings. We're gonna be in 2 Kings, 4th chapter, 42nd verse, picking up from there, and we'll be going all the way from there to 2 Kings 5 and 19. That's where we'll conclude. All right. So, and said, and there came a man from Baal Shalisha, and brought the man of God bread of the first fruits, 20 loaves of barley, and fresh ears of corn in his sack. Now, this is interesting right here, because we also talking about the first fruit. I mean, and you notice that it says that the first fruits here of 20 loaves of barley. We know also that in the land, that's usually the earliest harvest is the barley, and then later on the wheat. But why is it that this certain man, this particular man, who came from Baal Shalishah, we're not sure exactly where the location of Baal Shalishah is. All we know is that it's somewhere in the southern part of the northern kingdom. And what we find out here, and we got a lot of things that we find out, is that the individual bringing it to the man of God, and that's not to a priest, when we know that the first fruits should go to the Beit HaMikdash. That's where all the first fruit go. So why is he bringing it there? Some would say, that even when they broke off, not only that they had calves at both ends of the territory of the northern kingdom, but some commentators would say people was actually forbidden to go by and bring offerings and stuff to the southern kingdom of Judah. These wise they, say, "Oh, I'm glad to be home. I'm glad to be back," and to be a spiritual revival. So that was some of the things that people would bring out for him to bring it to the man of God, and he bring the first fruits. And then what we also get is a time element. So we get a time element involved with this when he's dealing with the first fruits. And one of the time elements we get as he's dealing with the first fruits is that we find out that it's during this particular season, during the time of the month of Aviv. So as we going through the month of Aviv at this particular time, we know automatically that he, there should be not so much just the barley harvest, but it should be some wheat, some grains of wheat, that he be bringing in the sheaves, right? But then he says, it said fresh ears of corn, which is fresh ears in the sack. Also, we learned a lot of important stuff at this particular time. We talked today about the calendar, and we have a lot that's going on in reference to the calendar. Should we have a leap month? Should we not have a leap month? Well, before the calendar was set during Hillel II, that before that they would have a leap month, an extra month designated at any particular, they designate a leap month, but not necessarily, as we say, every 3 or 2 or 5 years, 7 times in 19 years. They would designate a leap month, but we don't know exactly when they would designate it. But we do learn this from this offering here and from this scene here, because we don't know why this is attached with the main portion of the Sidra, because the Sidra mostly focused later on Sabra'at. And what's unique about it is this, is that we learn certain elements that during a famine, the leaders would never add an extra month, because in the extra month, that means during the time of a famine, that means that when food is scarce, you cannot eat of any produce, if you get any produce, until the day after Chag HaMatzot, the first day, which means, that means the second of the second day after Chag HaMatzot. Then after you bring your offering up, then you can eat of the produce. So if you have an extra month and you got the grain a month early before Chag HaMatzot come up, then you had to push that to the side, and there's already a famine. So what we learned here is that during the years of a famine, they would not institute a leap month, extra month. So now we know at this particular time, it was a famine during Elisha's period of time for 7 years. So that's a long time for a famine. more than double of that of his mentor, Elijah. So this man bringing him that. And then why bring it to this individual? Why bring it to Elisha since he's not a priest? And Elisha told him in the verse it says, and he said, give it to the people that they may eat. And his servant said, how should I set this before 100 men? But he said, give the people that they may eat. For thus said the Lord, they shall eat and shall leave thereof. So he set it before them, and they did eat and left thereof according to the word of the Lord. All right, so here it is. This prophet got some revelation. He didn't take it. He didn't eat it. Now, one, he fed other people with it, which was the prophets that was being hid in the cave by basically, Obadiah hid 100 in the cave, 100 in the cave, and other. So now they're not so much in hiding now. So this man was supposed to feed 100 prophets. So they had a school where people just want to focus not on just studying law, participating in law, but they want to study and try to understand prophecy. So they had like a school of the prophets, so to speak. And Elisha, being the most dominant guy, become like the head man in that particular area. Now, some would say because of the name, his father named Shaphat, that he might have been out the tribe of Gad. That's other people will say he was a priest or Kohen. That we can't support nowhere, in fashion. It's just people would say that. But what we have is when we look into the book of the Chronicles, we find a man that was named Shaphat, who happened to be out the tribe of God. And that also happened to be Elisha's father's name. So it could be traced out the tribe of God himself. So now, as we go further, we look and say, well, all right, he feeding them, they be left, and according to the word, he got this message, and they ate that 20 loaves, those 20 loaves of barley. Now, let you know how tough things are. You usually don't make bread out of barley. You mostly make bread out of wheat. Barley you use for other stuff. And also, we know when you talk about basically the first fruits of that's usually associated with the 2 loaves that's brought up by the individual, made of wheat, made with leavening during the time of Shavuot. So it's a lot going on here in this particular time of Elisha. All right, so we're going to pick it up from the 5th chapter of 2 Kings, first verse. And it goes on to say, now Naaman, captain of the host of the king of Aram, was a great man with his master and held in esteem, because by him the Lord had given victory unto Aram. And he was also a mighty man of valor, but he was a leper. So this is what's the correlation between this particular portion and the portion of Tazria. One of the things I like to speak on in reference to Tazria is that when we talk about Tazria, most times it's translated. Sarat, rather, excuse me. Sarat. That's in the Sidra portion of Tazria. When we look at Zarat, which they call and translate as leprosy, it's completely different when you go over that particular Sidra strongly. It's nothing related to what we consider the normal skin disease of today. And when we look at it, the closest, when we say Zarat, the closest word we come with maybe psoriasis, and that's just a word they're using for a bad skin disease, but it's not psoriasis. And also, the thing is that with the disease that's described in the scriptures, it's only, they always associate with, immorality, bad talk, and idol worship. They tend to associate that from correlations that they see that people that had it within the book. But one of the things that's unique about that is that when you talk about a skin ailment, it's a skin ailment that is so unique that all the individual got to do is walk into a room where other people at that has that sarai on them. And everybody in the room is unclean, and everything in the room is unclean. And it's a strange paradox is that even when the Kohen, I might know as much as the Kohen, but I don't have the authority to say, this is Sarai. And really, it's mostly related to Israelites, but we see now that it's dealing with people other than an Israelite, with an outside nation of an individual. Before, we only seen cases of that particular thing, disease, or ailment rather, only amongst Israel. But this is the only time, the first time, that we actually see that the unique disease is amongst an alien, a mighty man. And then there's a lot of questions. And say he was a mighty man, a man of valor. You know, so what we find out here, we're gonna find out some interesting things concerning the individual Naaman. So if you're ready, Chief. Yes.
Verse 2, 2 Kings chapter 5, verse 2. And the Arameans had gone out in bands and brought away captive out of the land of Israel a little maid, and she waited on Naaman's wife. And she said unto her mistress, would that my Lord were with the prophet that is in Samaria, then will he recover him of his leprosy.
Hold right there. All right. They use a unique word in Hebrew, you know, which is al-khalai, which is like submit, you know. So it's like that's not a use word for, you know, similar to prayer, where when Moses, we find similar that word used when Moses decided to pray for us in the center of the golden calf, the same, you know, shorish. But what we find here is that here's a young maid. She's a captive, part of the band, brought there not by choice but by force, and it was raiding. And here, this individual who's supposed to be a mighty man of valor, and it said, now, what was this? Why would she say a young girl tell the mistress about the mistress husband? A young girl, and he used the word, you know, I mean, in the sense of Na'ara Katana, you know, which is a little young girl. She could recognize the arrogance in this individual. How could you be next to the king and still be high in esteem? You don't say the king, say you, and even amongst the king, he was a man of valor, a mighty man, and he was esteemed by the king. That means the king looked at him as being greater than himself. And that's how you see himself, greater than the king, this particular ego that he had. And she telling the mistress that if we go there, if we meet the prophet, you know, that's in Samaria, that he will recover him of his leprosy. Now, like I said before, the leprosy that it talks about in the scriptures is different from any skin disease we have, because other skin disease is internal, and it causes not only unsightliness, but it also injures the individual. It's caused for some kind of injury on the individual. Where if this, when a guy have Sarai as described, even with a lesion, you know, in there where the hair grow, it don't seem like it makes him handicapped in no other way other than that he's contaminating, that he's not allowed to be around in a walled city, he's not allowed to be in a walled area, and that we know that once he's diagnosed as that, which is a strange anomaly, because if it was really that malignant, it's only considered malignant once the Kohen say, all right, lock him up. He has Sarai. He's a Mesorah. So while he's a candidate, he's locked up till he be sure. And so he's a candidate. But after he's no longer a candidate, but actually is a Mesorah, then he got to walk around with lip covered, with a bell, and talk about Tame, which is a very humbling experience. But the strange thing about it is that it's only when he's declared that he becomes contaminating. And that's one of the unique things about why we can't confuse it, where he just touched me and I get that skin disease on me because he touched me. It's not described. We don't have no cases of that where if you touch a person, he had that same skin disease. What you have is that if that person is near you or touch you, that you become ritually unclean. So we can't had this in the same category like, say, measles or chicken pox or what's this new thing they got out? They said older people get something like smallpox. Well, they come to me, shingles, yeah, shingles. It's something altogether different. They didn't say this is going to jump off this person that has Sarai and goes to the next person. It just make them ritually unclean. And it's only unclean because the Creator says so in that area. And it's unsightly. But then she told him to go and see the prophet in Samaria. So Elisha, we find out where Elisha territory was. We find out where Elijah territory mostly was. And when we find out about that this is not really dealing with the southern kingdom. All this is being taken place more so with the northern kingdom. All right, 4th verse.
Verse 4, it reads, and he went in and told his Lord, saying, thus and thus said the maid that is of the land of Israel. And the king of Aram said, go now, and I will send a letter unto the king of Israel. And he departed and took with him 10 talents of silver and 6,000 pieces of gold and 10 changes of raiment. And he brought the letter to the king of Israel, saying, and now when this letter is come unto thee, behold, I have sent Naaman my servant to thee, that thou mayest recover him of his leprosy. And it came.
Hold right there. Okay. Now, there's a lot going on here. First off, you raiding the borders of Israel. You got a captive from Israel. And your wife just told you what the little girl has said. And so this must bother you with all your glory. That, and the thing is that, why, if he's that mighty, why he go to the king? He goes to the king because you going to deal with the enemy, you're looking for help. And you got to know if the king is on board with you going to the enemy, looking for help. Going to the people that you raid and oppress, looking for help. And and so therefore, it shows that you're a patriot. It's still a humbling experience because look, I just don't want to go on my own, even though I'm this great general, this great conqueror, and just go over there and find this man myself. But I need the king to be with me in this, because now I need help that bothers me, something that really bothers me. So that's the beginning of a humbling experience. So he want somebody of influence to know that I'm getting ready to go there. I'm seeking help. And he's admitting that help don't exist where he at. So there's a lot going on with that. And then after that, the king said, I will send a letter unto the king of Israel. So what's as important is this, that the king said, I'm down with you. And I'm going to send a letter there. And making him get ready to do this. He's going to have to find a solution. And they never thought of it before. We don't know how long this guy had Sarai, but it was enough that not only the little girl that's a captive was concerned about it, but his wife was concerned about it. And when his wife is concerned about the way you look, then now you say, oh, wow, I got to see if I could go ahead and fix this. Because no man like to be in a position where his wife don't see him as being comely. No man like to be in that kind of position. No matter, because that's a whole nother level. But let's read a little bit further what it says there.
Verse 7, it reads, and it came to pass when the king of Israel had read the letter that he rent his clothes and said, am I God to kill and to make alive, that this man doth send unto me to recover a man of his leprosy? But consider, I pray you, and see how he seeketh an occasion against me.
Hold right there. Now, that's Jehoram. 7 years of famine. And he said, I'm on God. The letter said strictly that he coming to see the prophet. You know, that's what we're supposed to see. He coming to see the prophet. But the letter's to the king. All right. And the letter to the king, you know, and saying, you know, like the king got the power to, you know, to recover him of his leprosy. And the king take it personal. Like, what formula I got? I know how leprosy works. And it's a leprosy where even the priest say, there's nothing I could do for you but pray. So why is that? You know, and he would tear his clothes, say, you look for occasion. What more occasion you need as a king when your people is getting raided and taken off into you know, into captivity? But to show you that his father, Ahab, you know, had a lot of idols going on, got jammed up in a battle. And so, and he died from a result of an arrow that's being shot by some unknown guy. And he died, and he had a problem with Elijah. So he himself obviously had followed in the pattern of his father, because in his time it's a famine for 7 years. But let's pick it up from there.
Verse 8 reads, and it was so when Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had rent his clothes, that he sent to the king, saying, wherefore hast thou rent thy clothes? Let him come now to me, and he shall know that there is a prophet in Israel. So Naaman came with his horses and with his chariots, and stood at the door of the house of Elisha.
Hold on right there. All right, before we get to 10. All right. First of all, Elisha heard about it. You know, now the book says Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had rent his clothes. But what do Elisha says? He said, and he shall know that there's a prophet in Israel. Why say it's a prophet in Israel and not necessarily a God in Israel? That's something to consider. Where the king himself said, am I a God? And the girl told him about a prophet. And Elisha, knowing that as bad as the northern kingdom is doing right now, during the time of the famine and the way they treated, that God seemed far removed from the people and their thoughts. So therefore, if man and Naaman ain't come there looking for God. He come there looking for a doctor that can handle his condition, not looking for God. It wasn't about a spiritual thing. He needs something physically done. So he's looking for somebody to be able to handle this physical problem. So that show you the big difference in mentality of the time of the people between the king, the prophet, you know, how the prophet viewed the people, and how Naaman viewed the people that was able to help him, and how the girl who's a captive said a prophet is able to do this, but she never said God is able to do that. Ain't that something? You know, a prophet gonna recover you, but not God gonna recover you. And so she had to see something about him and said, this ain't no godly individual. Because she only mentioned about a prophet being able to help. And then the prophet only could work and do work if God ordains it to be done.
Absolutely.
So now, and for Elisha to say that, and I'd like to bring out one more point. For Elisha to say that, that's a bold statement. So, you know, because his mentor said, I alone am left for the prophets of God. You know, you got to help me out. He said it 3 times, and then Elisha replaced him. So now, here Elisha said, then he'll know that there's a prophet in Israel. And you got plenty of them. The sons of the prophets, you got plenty of them. But it's like, there is a prophet. I'm the prophet in Israel. So sometimes, you know, when we look at the pattern, sometimes people might adapt some things that's not too good. And because when Elisha saw Elijah, his mentor, taken up, and Elijah asked him what he wanted. And he said, I want a double portion of your power. He said, wow, now that's something to think about. I want a double portion of my mentor's power. And he get me taken up in the whirlwind. Not that I want to be a godly individual. I want, I want to, to be able to help my people the best way I can. I need some extra help where I'm looking somewhat vain. Now, we hate to bring these things out on some of the prophets in there, but the way the book sheds lights on it is that Elijah did about 8 miracles. His protege did 16 when you count them up. So Elijah did 8 miracles in his lifetime, and Elisha did 16 miracles during his course of a life that we read about in the book. And he wanted a double portion of Elijah's power. And instead of saying, well, okay, what would I ask for if I had the choice to ask for something? Would I use my mentor as a gauge? Or I use something else that would be more in the line of what God would ask for? So this shows you that it's a lot of things going on. Then you got to wonder how the rest of the people think that live at that same time with all these raids going on and the famine going on. But let's read a little bit further and see what we come up with.
Verse 10, and Elisha sent the messenger unto him, saying, Go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and thy flesh shall come back to thee, and thou shalt be clean.
Hold on right there. He sent one. In other words, he stood at the door, but Elisha sent somebody out to meet him. Say, he ain't coming up in here. And he didn't even go to knock at the door. He stood at the door, probably still sitting on his horse, wherever he's riding on. I said, go there, let them know I'm out here. Shout for him, call him out. And Elisha sent there and told him to go into Jordan 7 times, wash, and thy flesh shall come back, and thou shalt be clean. All right, 11 verse.
Verse 11 reads, But Naaman was wroth, and went away and said, Behold, I thought he will surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of Jehovah his God, and wave his hand over the place and recover the leper.
Hold right there. Said no. Said it's simple enough. This I got in mind. Now, he never had in mind anybody could help him in the first place. But now he got the method that the guy need to help him in. Just wave your hand, man. That should be all. Everything's everything. That's it. I want to see that sleight of hand movement. And wave it over the spot. That's it. You ain't got to touch me. Just go and spread that hand over there. So, can you imagine you helping somebody and they're going and because of their condition, and they're going to tell you how to help them. Mm-hmm. It's like telling the doctor how to do surgery on you, but yet you're the one that got the ailment. So that's where his mind was at this time, and he upset. Now he's a mighty man, but he went away. So he said, "Well, if he's a man of valor, he's a warrior. Why did he come and say, look here, you gonna come out here and fix me up?" I started just saying, you never make your wife mad when she's fixing your dinner. You never make her mad, You never make the doctor upset when you go into his office. So when you need help with some individual, you gotta maintain a humble experience. But he got really hot. But he was wise enough not to even try to say, go tear it down. So he had a certain type of fear. So when we look at that, what was his answer after that? After he had the solution that he thought. 12th verse.
Verse 12, it reads, Are not Amana and Parpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel?
All right, this is a patriotic thing.
Mm-hmm.
Keep going.
May I not wash in them and be clean? So he turned and went away in a rage.
All right, there. Say, look here. I mean, I'm looking at that Jordan. The Jordan River don't look that great now. I seen that. I mean, it ain't crystal clear and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
You know, you got some spots that's really, really muddy and stuff like that up there. You know, and yet that's supposed to be fresh water. And you say, well, do I want to really drink of the Jordan River the way they're looking? And it moves pretty strong sometimes. But you still say, I don't know if I want to drink any of that water without doing the filter and boiling it and doing all kind of stuff these days. So can you imagine that he coming from a place and talking about these rivers there that are really in Damascus, that's really, really super rivers, you know, and some say like tributaries to the Tigris and all that, that they actually run fluid, clear, radiant, like you see in them oasis or something like that. So at that time, and so he turned and went away in a rage. And 13th verse, the servant fled.
Verse 13, it reads, and his servants came near and spoke unto him and said, my father, if the prophet had bid thee to do some great thing, wouldest thou not have done it? How much rather than when he saith to thee, wash and be clean?
All right, now, right there. Now that's a humbling experience there, but it had to be more than one guy to tell him. We came all this way. All right, he asked you something. He told you something simple. No, man, you know, and he said some great things. He don't mind doing some great things, but he didn't talk about him doing or participating in it from the very beginning. He wasn't trying to participate in his own reformation. He wasn't trying to participate in his own healing. He figured this guy gonna come on out, wave the hand, and I ain't gotta do anything. I done made the trip. You know, so the servants had to let him know, every time you do some great thing, you wouldn't hold off to doing it. So it means that sometimes in the lesson you learn that in your own reformation, you gotta make some contribution too. If you want to be made whole by the Creator, you got to take some steps to be made whole and before the Creator. So now, he said, how much simpler is just take a wash? Read a little bit.
Verse 14, it reads, then went he down and dipped himself 7 times in the Jordan, according to the saying of the man of God, and his flesh came back like the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. And he returned to the and he returned to the man of God, he and all his company, and came and stood before him, and he said, behold, now I know that there is no God in all the earth but in Israel. Now therefore I pray thee, take a present of thy servant.
Hold right there. All right. Now you notice he talk about God in the earth. You know, Jeffrey will talk about God, the God of gods. You know, I mean, you know that their God's the God of all gods. You know, sometimes when people come in this way of life, they have a certain limitation on the Creator that we worship, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So, far as he's concerned, I jumped in the water. So this must be the top God on down here on earth. He ain't the top God up in heaven, but he's the top God right down here. You know where I'm at. Because I jumped right in that water, right down here where it's at. And next thing you know, I'm straight. So he's a God of the earth. Not necessarily the God of all creation. Not necessarily the God that everything works out. You know, some people pursue the God of gods. You know, and say, yeah, there are other gods, but he's the strongest God. You know, not that he's our God alone. And there's no other. So the concept of a heathen, understanding the Creator that we serve, is a dynamic difference, because we're talking about one that is, you know, and will be, you know, and was. So we know that when we talk about the Creator, in a sense, we're looking at a Creator that's just one job he do in creation. That's just one of his areas that he said, okay, I did this. Not that that's all I am. I just don't create. You know, I'm much more than being a creator. So when we just talk about the Creator, that's what he do. A healer, that's just one of the things he do. Raise up nations, That's just one of the things he do. But that's not him. The creator is all that we can conceive of and more. So we go further, and he said, so now he should be feeling good about himself after he make this declaration, because now in the beginning, he realized that the king didn't think about God of Israel to that degree, and the girl thought about a prophet healing him, and he coming to a prophet to heal him, and yet when the prophet, told him to go and dip, then he didn't give credit to the prophet. He gave credit to God. So now that's where it started with the prophet being the center, the top thing, the top objective. But here, this man, once he got through this revelation, he gave credit to the creator, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and said the God of all earth. But go ahead, read what we got here.
Verse 16. But he said, as Yahuwah liveth before whom I stand, I will receive none. And he urged him to take it, but he refused.
Okay.
And Naaman said, if not, yet I pray thee, let there be given to thy servant 2 mules burden of earth. For thy servant will henceforth offer neither burnt offering nor sacrifice unto other gods, but unto Yahuwah. And this thing Yahuwah upon thy servant, when my master goeth in to the house
take 18 again. Take 18 again, slowly.
Verse 18. And this thing Yahuwah pardon thy servant, when my master goeth into the house of Rimmon to worship there, and he leaneth on my hand, and I prostrate myself in the house of Rimmon. When I prostrate myself in the house of Rimmon, Yahuwah pardon thy servant in this thing. And he said unto him, go in peace. So he departed from him some way.
All right there. All right, we're gonna start. That's where we're gonna end it at, But those that might want to read, that things don't quite end as nice as it should be. But it ends nice, but it's individual. Outside it. But one of the things we learned a lot of lessons in this here story. But one of the great lessons we learned also is that he believed God, you got to have the earth, that God performed this miracle for him, that I got to take some of this stuff back. I ain't taking the water back. I'm taking the actual ground back. Because he said, the God of all the earth. So he believed, hey, I got to have some of this soil over here. Because the water didn't look that good. I got better water where I'm going. I ain't got to go back in the water like that. But I need to build me an altar. I can't sacrifice on no water. I can sacrifice on some dirt. I mean, earth and off. I could do that. So this is what he wanted. They go back. And that shows that he only, in his limited idea, think that God is strongest in the land of Israel and not strong outside the land of Israel. So I got to take some of the land of Israel with me that worship this God and offer sacrifice to this God on actual soil that belongs to the land of Israel. That's something to consider, in his mind. But what is great that I really like in this, I find fascinating, is that when he said, when I go into the house of Rimmon and the king lean upon me and bow down, and he asked for forgiveness because, the king bowed down, you can't be standing up. And where he's going to worship, you got to bow down with him. So what happens is that Elisha said, go in peace. And the answer is real strong because Elisha cannot say it's okay. That's between you and your God to say it's okay. You're going through a certain type of development. So if you're going through a certain type of development, that if I say go in peace, I can say God gonna be all right with you. I can't say that that's okay to do wrong. So what I am saying is that you go in peace of mind because you satisfied and happy that you recognize that there's something outside of you that's greater than you and greater you have ever known before, and you got rewarded for it. And you ask for forgiveness. That's what you need. He asked for forgiveness for something that he know he's going about to do that's going to be beyond his control. So sometimes if a heathen that was arrogant, that's a mighty man in vow, held in high esteem, could humble himself to that degree, then how much more for us as children of Israel? So as we start to develop and go through this season, approaching the season of Pesach and Chag HaMatzot, one of the lessons is that how do we get back spiritually? Because Zara'at is more, not just physical, but it's spiritual. And it's one ailment that only affects the outer skin. It doesn't respect the inner body. Only stays on the surface. So sometimes what's on the surface is what we try to, cover up the most. But sometimes what's in us internally will come to the surface. So when we talk about Zara'at, we can't think of it as elephantitis or any other kind of disease of that. We look at it more as a spiritual element. And one thing about the Sidra that goes along with this is 67 verses in there, but they have an unusual letter Gimel in there. And since I try to tie in the beginning of the Sidra with the Genesis story about the creation and stuff like that, dealing with the son circumcised on the 8th day, it's 22 letters in the 5 words I mentioned in the book of Genesis, and 23 in Tazria, when they talk about, and on that day, on the 8th day, that it should be circumcised. So when we look at that, we come with a number of 20, 23, 22, 45. And what's unique about that is that a man is tied to the creation, because you have another word that has that same numerical value, which is and I tell you the wall last time, the wall itself is like a hook that joins two opposite, two opposing points, is that you have the word Adam, Aleph, Dalet, Mem, which is 45. And it's about a man joining and bringing holiness and sanctity down here on earth. And in order to bring that down here on earth, you got to come into the covenant of Abraham. So you actually raising yourself up in order to bring some stuff down. So with that, I hope you got something out of what I said, and any mistakes been my own. And I said, Shalom Aleichem early, Shabbat Shalom.
Nasik, I have a question for you.
Yes.
All right, this was a discussion that we had. This is also something that I spoke on during Shabbat night talk. So some of the people that heard my Shabbat night talk might know, but this is something that actually was a great conversation piece in the back room. Now you know about the back room in the office when we have discussions.
Oh, yes.
Those discussions
the high-powered discussions.
Yeah. So the question that I posed was, and I posted with Torah, but it's something that happened currently last Sunday, the Will Smith slap of Chris Rock. So the question that I asked was, or what I said was, by Torah, was Will Smith justified in what he did, going up on stage and slapping someone? So my opinion is, by Torah, he's not, because you can't just, now you could put your hands on the individual, but there's consequences for every action that you take. And most likely by Torah it wouldn't be right, because if you hurt someone, you slap someone, you knock their eye out, or they become debilitated to the point where they can't work. Now there's liability for making sure that this person recovers, that you pay their wages and take care of all their affairs until they're fully recovered. So I said by Torah, not quite. I said, but there are rules in neighborhoods that we live in. That if you talk a certain way, that certain things can happen to you. You know, if you keep running your mouth with certain individuals, right? So, in terms of Torah, what is your opinion on it? Is there any justifiable reason in Torah for Will Smith to have gone up there and smacked Chris Rock for what he said?
All right. Well, absolutely not. And I'm going to start off with that from the gate, and then I'm going to try to qualify some things. All right. Even in this country, they say you got freedom of speech, but you're not free from the consequences of what you say. So I want to start off with that. You know, from being in America, that you got freedom of speech, but you're not free from the consequences of what you say. And also, in our way of life, you have the right to say what you want to say, but you held accountable for what you say. Now, his job is that of a comedian. So a median, people go there to roast. And he started off talking about love and everything like that, but it wasn't a vile joke. And for him, he thought it was an okay joke. And then he looked at her across the thing, and she gave him that look. Now, their marriage is actually where the problem lies at, and everybody know that. So he had a long runway to walk up and think about it. I think maybe at least 4 or 5 steps, at least, at the minimum, to say what I'm going to do. And then he went and smacked the guy and turned back around, not thinking about this man's family, not thinking about his kids, his family, his friends, and not thinking about this the first time Black people got a chance to host the Oscars, when his wife was the one that set it off about boycotting the Oscars a while back. And also,
no, actually, that's not the first time a Black person hosted the Oscars.
I know. I mean,
produced it. Right.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was running the show. Black folks were running the show.
Running the show.
All right. And you had a lot of people making first in history.
Right.
And he's been a candidate at the and he gets up. Yeah. And he gets up and do that when a man is doing his job. He been to other stuff. You know what Chris Rock do and how comedians go, and he didn't go that hard on it. And yet, on her own talk show, she demeaned him as a man. You got a lot of immorality in the marriage that is openly confessed, and he was okay with that. And so now, I think he won another Oscar by crying and giving him crocodile tears when he went back up there. I think he won. That's me personally. I think that was another Oscar, trying to cry and everything like that there. But what I find wrong too is not only that, the security. Why he's still sitting up in there when you did this to the host? And then it's not just you that made it look bad. You made it look bad for everybody else that's of color. At that time, when we got a chance to run things, at the Oscar, you made it bad for all times. So in Torah, if a person says something that slander, if it's slander, now you got a rebuke that's unseemly, because some rebukes could be true, but it's done to maliciously hurt an individual. Right. Then you held accountable for those things, but now how accountable is a sliding scale, because you might say, oh, so and so is an idiot, he didn't know how to do such and such thing. Now you slander and defame him, and it might be true, but what is the penalty for that, and what's the repercussion for that? So it's not nothing you can exercise any physical authority over or monetary authority over. All you could do is spiritually either uplift yourself or pray to the Creator in that area. So he's been to other comedy shows, and so about Torah, you don't have a leg to stand on Torah. Some people try to say defending his woman? How can you defend your woman and knowing what she said about you on public national TV, and you're okay, and talking about you have an open relationship and marriage that was okay?
All right, so I do have to say this. All right, we, for most part, we understand that, but let's take that out of the equation. What's already known about her, let's just think about them, that this never happened. This infidelity never happened, and it was just a loyal husband, a loyal wife with her husband.
Even then, if it was a loyal wife and a husband, you went to a comedy, and you know he's a comedian. You went to the Oscar. You know he roasts people. You never, you've been to roasters before. So if you don't like a joke, then you're gonna address it and say, I think that was a little strong, in that area, or leave the place and see him later about it.
So your position is by Torah, whether either he was wrong by Torah.
Yeah, no way he had the justification to do what he did.
So then I'll come back with this. When we look at Torah, when David got ousted by his son Absalom, right?
Okay.
And he left, I believe, Jerusalem at that point. He left the city of David, and Absalom did what he did, slept with the 10 concubines. On his way out, Shimei, I believe, the Benjamite, was cursed out King David. Cursed him bad. Threw rocks at him, right? And David, I believe, nephew wanted to fall on Shimei. And David said,
exactly. Abishai. Yeah.
Abishai, right? So then David said, leave him. But on his deathbed, David told Solomon, don't let his hoary head go into the grave in peace. If it's just words, or if it's like that, then why didn't, if you could say what you want to say and no, let me get my thought together. If it's like that, then why didn't he give him a pass for saying what he said? Why didn't David give Shimei a pass for what he said?
David didn't always
you could
act.
Just say what you want to say.
David didn't always act, 100% above board. And, he's a man of God on heart. He know how to repent. And he told Solomon to deal with him wisely. So Solomon cut a deal with him, because he know just from him saying something wouldn't have been justified enough. Because he wanted a wise and understanding heart to judge such a wise and understanding people.
Great point.
So
basically, hang your own self. Hang your own self.
Yeah. So now I got to put you in a situation where you will actually commit yourself, where where I can execute you, and I'm not executing you. And you notice you never said, because of what you said about my father David, did you not swear?
That was the best answer I got out of all the answers, and there was some debated. It was some good answers, but
I'm saying, but he didn't deal with that issue. He dealt with another issue and executed him on it.
Got you. You actually gave the best answer out of everyone, and there was some really good, and I'm not saying like that's the answer I was looking for. I'm saying and people gave great answers. It went from, he was justified. You can't just talk reckless about people. And I was standing on this point, but the intricacies that you brought out of it is that you said David didn't always operate, above board.
His last days was a lot of, he didn't know what was going on. Right. And the prophet had a scheme. The wife had a scheme.
Right.
The one son had a scheme. Joab had a scheme. You know,
Right.
But Solomon, knowing that what he did, you know, and you're warned about, beware of the king. Commandments and stuff like that, because you got the power of life and death. You're warned about that.
Right.
But so he let him trap himself, and he made an oath, and the oath was under the penalty of death. And so therefore, I can't worry about what you said. Back then to my pops, he's gone. And I know my pops was upset with it. And also, another area is that the judgment should have been handled by you. So you left somebody else to handle the case. And that's how you even had the problem with your other son, Absalom. Because after the matter with Bathsheba, that he didn't feel qualified to judge anymore.
So then the other one I dropped was, I believe it was the prophet Elisha, and the children were laughing at him, and they told him, "Go ahead, thou bald head." And the two she bears came out and ate up and killed the children.
Yeah, that's a rough one too. But then I just brought out some things about in this particular century,
If you could you could just say what you want to say, and there's no consequences for it. But I think overall,
yeah, but when you say go up thou bald headed, now is that enough? They call two sheep to come and tear him. Now if I remember the story correctly, and didn't say they died. And didn't say the kids died. So they tore them up, beat them down, whatever. You might have survived that onslaught and stuff like that. It might have been mauled a little bit and stuff like that, slapped around a little bit. But I told you the territory he was dealing with. He was dealing with the Northern Kingdom pretty much. So a lot of stuff was going on. So you had a lot of idol worshiping going on up there, as we know from the history, a lot of famine going on. So it's a real murky situation during that particular time in the Northern Kingdom. And his actual mannerism in the Sidra I just read was kind of almost mirror image of his mentor. That he know that there's a prophet in Israel. Well, it's like, you ain't the only one in Israel. And it took a Naaman to actually recognize. He recognized God with the first story of the man from Baal Shalishi. She recognized God. Telling him about the men will eat the bread and has to leave over. So we understand that part. But when it came to this other situation, he didn't say God would do such and such at all.
Okay. You can see it was so it's one of those questions that would have a bunch of different. It got heated in a good way, in a righteous way, and we have.
I know y'all, man. Everybody gonna come strong and flip them pages and stuff like that. Bring out a pursuit here and there. So I know how that was. You know what I mean? But that's good that at least you're flipping the books and you're trying to search for the truth and what is the righteous path. And the thing was not y'all wasn't trying to prove who was right. You were trying to find out what is right according to God, which is a big difference.
It's like us being judges, right? And I told him, I said, we're judges. If we were judges, how would we judge this matter? And what would you use to defend your point? Because everything is referenced. Even in the law books in America, you reference another case in order to try to win yours. So now when you start, like you said, we started flipping those pages and people started bringing intricate points. Like Benjamin said, the prophet didn't call out the she-bears. The Most High caused that to happen. The prophet didn't do anything. Like those are little things that you let slip by, but it's true. God didn't approve of the kids disrespected. And then what Benjamin also said was, It's the anointed of the Lord. You can't say or do what you want to say to the anointed of the Lord. And he pointed out that that's what David said, that he cursed the anointed of the Lord. And then he said that that's the reason why David didn't kill Saul, because he was the Lord's anointed.
But it says, touch not my anointed, nor do my prophets no harm. So
but he said, I think he said that when David was on his deathbed, that David pointed out that he cursed the anointed of that Shimei. I
understand that, but that's something he contextualized and added into it.
Gotcha.
That's King David himself.
Right. Gotcha.
Because even the things that touch not my anointed, nor do my prophets any harm.
Right.
So so that is a pursuit that we know is clear cut. All right, now, because you're going to have anointed that had to be slain.
Absolutely.
So, that's why they talk about when they talk about even a man on my altar, the one who's supposed to be around the altar is the priest.
Is the priest.
And the one that actually doing the major sacrifice on the altar is the high priest.
Right.
So he only one that gets anointed every time he get one into that position.
Gotcha.
So the king is anointed when he get in his position, and the high priest is anointed. Even though you're born a priest, but you're not, but you're anointed as a high priest.
Gotcha. Hallelujah. Torah by Nasik. Thank you for your insight and your wisdom. Pray that the Most High God continue to be with you and bless you, and keep your thoughts. Hallelujah.
All right. Hallelujah. Sure.
Come on and wade in the water. Come on and wade in the water, children. Come on and wade in the water. I know God's gonna trouble the water. I said, come, who's that? Children are dressed in red. God's gonna trouble the water. Well, it looks like the children that Moses led. God's gonna trouble the water. You need to wade in the water. Come on and wade in the water, children. In the water. I know God's gonna trouble the water. Well, I hope the children are dressed in a white. God's gonna trouble the water. Well, it looks like the Hebrew Israelites. Yeah, let me tell you now, you need to wade in the water. Come on and wade in the water, children. Come on and wade in the water. Yeah, I said God's gonna trouble. Yes, he is. Listen now, ain't that Step in the water. Step in the water. Come on and step right in that water. I know that God's gonna trouble the water. Now I stepped in the water. The water was cold. It chilled my body. I said, chill my body, but not my soul. I know God's gonna trouble the water. Hey, come on and wade in the water. Say you better come on in the water. You need to wade in the water. Yeah, I know God's gonna trouble the water. Hey, I said wade, come on and wade in the water. going to see you in 40 minutes.
Vivo unichasadecha Yahweh, תשועתך כאמרתך, ואענה חורפי דבר, כי בטחתי בדבריך, ואל תצל מפי דבר אמת עדניות, כי למשפטיך ייחלתי, ואשמרה תורתך תמיד, לעולם ועד. Vivo unichasadecha Yahweh, תשועתך כאמרתך, ואענה תורתך דבר, כי בטחתי בדבריך, ואל תצל מפי דבר אמת עדניות, כי למשפטיך ייחלתי, ואשמרה תורתך תמיד, לעולם ועד. Na 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 na. Vivo unichasadecha Yahweh, תשועתך כאמרתך, ואענה חורפי דבר, כי בטחתי בדבריך, ואל תצל מפי דבר אמת עדניות, כי למשפטיך ייחלתי, ואשמרה תורתך תמיד, לעולם ועד. Vivo unichasadecha Yahweh, תשועתך כאמרתך, ואענה חורפי דבר, כי בטחתי בדבריך, ואל תצל מפי דבר אמת עדניות, כי למשפטיך ייחלתי, ואשמרה תורתך תמיד, לעולם ועד. הללויה, 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 הללויה. Sing it, Kohen. Sing it, Kohen. תשועתך כאמרתך, ואענה חורפי דבר, כי בטחתי בדבריך, ואל תצל מפי דבר אמת עדניות, כי למשפטיך ייחלתי, ואשמרה תורתך תמיד, לעולם ועד. Hallelujah, 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 ha ha ha, le le le, na 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 la, hey ha 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 hey 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 hey, ha. Na 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 na
Yahuah,
תשועתך כאמרתך, ואענה חורפי דבר, כי בטחתי בדבריך, ואל תציל מפי דבר אמת עד מיום. כי למשפטיך ייחלתי, ואשמרה תורתך תמיד. לעולם
I want to praise, I want to praise, I want to praise, I want to praise. He gives me life, I won't survive without my King. I want to sing, I want to sing, I want to sing, I want to sing. He gives me life, I won't survive without my King. I want to serve, I want to serve, I want to serve, I want to serve. He gives me life, I won't survive without my King. Come on, come on. When it's over, yeah. When it's said and done, he will be here, the one from which we come. From the beginning, oh, to when we leave, he will be here. So in him I believe. I want to praise, I want to praise, I want to praise, I want to praise. He gives me life, I won't survive without my King. I won't survive without him. I want to serve, I want to serve, I want to serve, I want to serve. He gives me life, I won't survive without my King. I want to sing, I want to sing, I want to sing, I want to sing. He gives me life, I won't survive without my King. Say this. Yahovah, Eloheinu, 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 Yahovah, Eloheinu. Praise Jehovah, praise Jehovah, praise Jehovah. Come on.
Yahovah Elohim, Yahovah Elohim, Yahovah Eloheinu, Yahovah Eloheinu, Yahovah Eloheinu, Yahovah Eloheinu, Yahovah Eloheinu, Yahovah Yahovah Yahovah, Yahovah, Yahovah. Hayafa Elohim, Hayafa Elohim, Hayafa, Hayafa, Hayafa Elohim. Hayafa Elohim, Hayafa Elohim, Hayafa, Hayafa, Hayafa Elohim. Yahovah, hallelujah, Yahovah, hallelujah, Yahovah, hallelujah. Hayafa Elohim, Hayafa Elohim, Hayafa, Hayafa, Hayafa Elohim, Hayafa Elohim, Hayafa Elohim, Hayafa, Hayafa, Hayafa Elohim. Hallelujah! Yahovah! Hallelujah! Yahovah! Yahovah! Hallelujah! Hayafa Elohim! Hayafa Elohim! Hayafa! Hayafa! Hayafa Elohim! Hayafa Elohim, Hayafa Elohim, Hayafa, Hayafa, Hayafa Elohim. Shema Yisrael, Yahuwah. Come on, Israel. Eloheinu, Echad. What? Baruch Shem Kebo Makuto Leolam. Baruch Shem Kebo Makuto Leolam. Come on, strike it up, strike it up. Shema Yisrael, Yahuwah, Eloheinu, Echad. Baruch Shem Kebo Makuto Leolam. Baruch Shem Kebo Makuto Leolam. Come on. Shema Yisrael, Yahuwah, Eloheinu, Echad. Baruch Shem Kebo Makuto Leolam. Baruch Shem Kebo Makuto Leolam. Come on. I'm getting y'all warmed up. Shema Yisrael, Eloheinu, Echad. Baruch Shem Kebo Makuto Leolam. Come on. Baruch Shem Kebo Makuto Leolam. לעולם ועד. יוקר, 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 שמע ישראל יהוה אחד ברוך שם כבו מלכותו לעולם ברוך שם כבו מלכותו לעולם לעולם ועד. Come on. All right, all you families out there on the line on Zoom, all this is just a nice beat that you can shake to the right, shake to the left, shake to the right, shake to the left. Do I have to do it for you? Come on, come on. Come on, Israel, come on. Melech HaGadol, Borei Haaretz. Melech HaGadol, Borei Haaretz. Oh, Melech HaGadol, Borei Haaretz. Melech HaGadol, Borei Haaretz. Come on, Israel, come on. Help me sing. Come on. Melech HaGadol, Melech HaGadol, Borei Haaretz. Oh, Melech HaGadol, Melech HaGadol, Borei Haaretz. Melech HaGadol, Melech HaGadol, Borei Haaretz. Oh, Melech HaGadol. All right, come on. Y'all ready for that chant? Are we ready for that? We got to count it off, right? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashemayim ve'haaretz ha'etav toku ve'voku ve'koshek apnei tekom ve'ruach Elohim merakefet apnei hamayim. Hallelujah, Melech HaGadol, Borei Haaretz, Melech HaGadol, Borei Haaretz. Oh, Melech HaGadol, Borei Haaretz, Melech HaGadol, Borei Haaretz. He is one. Come on. Melech Kagado, Ore Hare, Ele Kagado, Ore Hare, Ele Kagado, Ore Hare. Hallelujah, Hallelujah, Hallelujah. Your kind, your kind, your kind.
Shalom, shalom, everyone. I want to give all praise and respect to the Creator, the one who allowed us to be alive today. Even thanking Chief Ooze for having me and putting this thing together so we could give glory to the Most High. I'm going to be singing Kavod, which means glory, because the Creator is truly due of all glory and praise. Hallelujah. Kavod le'ahu bore, ha'aretz ve'hashamayim, ve'hayam gam, ve'kol be'olamo. Baruch haba Yehovah, hu noten lanu chayim. Bisfil zeh ani noten kavod, bezaman machala hu rofeh, bezaman hara hu noten. Bisfil zeh ani noten kavod, 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 Kavod le'ahu bore, ha'aretz ve'hashamayim, ve'hayam gam, ve'kol be'olamo. Baruch haba Yehovah, hu noten lanu chayim. Bishvil zeh ani noten kavod, bezaman machala hu rofeh, bezaman hara'av hu noten. Bishvil zeh ani noten kavod, 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 Kavod le'ahu bore, ha'aretz ve'hashamayim, ve'hayam gam, ve'kol be'olamo. Baruch haba Yehovah, hu noten lanu chayim. Bishvil zeh ani noten kavod. Hallelujah.